Looking around here at the new RM of St. Clement's Public Workshop in East Selkirk, Manitoba, Canada, you would never know one of the biggest disasters of the area happened right here over 70 years ago. Local resident Fraser Stewart vividly remembers. It was August 29th, 1945. He was 8 years old, outside playing at his family's summer home near here, a peaceful place in the Canadian countryside. When suddenly, Fraser heard a great explosion and could see in the distance a large mushroom cloud of smoke. It must have been 1,000 feet in the air. Of course, World War II was still raging and ended shortly after on September 2nd, 1945. And in Fraser's young mind, he thought this might be an enemy attack. But that was impossible, as the war was in Europe, not here in East Selkirk. Fraser found out what happened when his dad came home later that day. You see, not far from him was a dynamite factory. There had been an explosion. 3 men had just died in a tragic accident. The CIL Brainerd Works dynamite plant began in the 1930s during the Depression to manufacture powerful explosives for the mines in Canada west of the Great Lakes of Ontario. The plant brought much needed work to the area. The building opened in 1935 and employed 30 people. It was located near rail lines and a river for shipping up Lake Winnipeg to the northern mines. It was a large compound with 17 buildings. Safety-wise, it was state-of-the-art. Manitoba had never seen a business built to these standards before. The dynamite was made from a powerful and volatile solid explosive called forsyth, manufactured in the CIL plants in eastern Canada. Any slight spark near it could cause an explosion, so every possible step was taken to be sure no spark could happen near the explosives. Employees had to change clothes when they entered the site, could not carry any metal objects in their pockets such as knives or coins, and the buildings and material used were designed to eliminate any possibility of a spark. Foreman Sam Rowley said there were very strict rules, like no running, no smoking, no matches, lighters, or cameras. You had to change your clothes to go to work. If you ignored these rules, you were fired on the spot. Despite this accident, the Brainerd Works dynamite plant upheld stringent safety standards. By 1959, Brainerd Works had won 10 awards for their safety program. Back on that day in 1945, Fraser's dad had just talked to neighbor Mike Nedwidney, who worked at the dynamite plant. He was in the packing house at the time of the explosion. Mike told the newspaper, "I felt the shock and ran out. The place was up in the air. I rushed out to the plant and helped fight the fire." For 11 years, the explosives plant had been accident-free until that fateful day at 2:37 p.m. The men who died had been cleaning up the cartridge-filling machine when a spark ignited 100 pounds of forsyth. The 3 men were killed instantly. A much larger quantity of forsyth had just been removed, or the explosion could have been much more catastrophic. The explosion started grass fires that were being fanned by a north wind toward the highly explosive cartridge storage house 110 yards away. Employees quickly manned the fire equipment and had the fires put out within an hour. Later, plant manager Major McNaughton commended the men for their coolness and efficiency in averting further disaster and said, "Every man knew his job and did it automatically without a hitch." The Winnipeg Evening Tribune of August 30th, 1945 said, "The place where the cartridge house stood was a scene of utter desolation. The blackened ground was littered for hundreds of yards with large pieces of galvanized iron, machinery, and the wooden framework of the house." Victim John Drobot of Goner, aged 34, was married to Myrtle and had a son named Harold. He had just returned to the plant 10 days before, after being on loan to the Transcona Cordite plant for 3 years. Emil Malmstrom of Garson, aged 35, was married to Elsie and had one 8-year-old daughter named Geraldine. Bill Rokosh of East Selkirk, aged 28, was married to Stella and had one 6-year-old daughter named Evelyn. Even with the inquest, they never did find out why the explosion happened. Foreman Sam Rowley said, "It was a puzzler as to what really happened, and perhaps we will never know." In the 1950s, development of plastic explosives that were more stable, less volatile, and less expensive began replacing dynamite. After 35 years, CIL Brainerd Works stopped manufacturing in 1970. The buildings were used for storage for many more years. By 1982, most of the buildings were gone. The grounds were neutralized afterwards by setting off explosives, and after environmental testing to be sure the grounds were safe, the RM of St. Clements built their new public works building on the same site.